These archetypes can help us understand human nature. None of them are absolute definitions. They are not boxes to categorize people, but like the north, south, east, and west directions are not absolute, but indispensable nevertheless. The archetypes north, south, east, and west help to differentiate types of masculine behavior. Red, blue, green, and yellow do not define specific colors, but ranges of colors. Similarly, the archetypes red, blue, green, and yellow describe ranges of feminine behaviors. These are all psychological traits, not physical gender traits. Individual people may at different times or in different circumstances express any of these psychological behaviors. Still, after 40 years of experience with these archetypes, I can say that the behaviors of most people fit one or two of these archetypes very well. They have helped me understand and accept different types of people. They have also helped me understand my own shifts of mood and mental capabilities. In this final video in the series, I'll describe the psychological underpinnings of a full and rewarding life, and I'll point out the internal barriers we must surmount to achieve this. There are two fundamentally different approaches depending on whether we are primarily ideal-oriented, like me and many other men, or whether we are essentially feeling-oriented, like most women I have known, but not all. These two directions are described later in the video. To proceed further, I'll call on George the Avatar. Hello, George.
Hello, Malcolm. Hello, everybody. The 8 basic archetypes and the 2 integrative ones represent specific psychological drives that energize us. They provide the motivations that enable us to make certain decisions and take certain actions, but not others. To lead a full life, our dominant archetypes need to be expressed, acted upon. This does not necessarily mean we should aim to become a complete person in the psychological sense. Not everyone has the capacity. It does mean understanding our nature with its strengths and limitations. Knowing our archetypal profile, that is, which archetypes we identify with, which we do not, will help here. There is joy in bettering ourselves. Satisfying our inner drives is the highway to that joy and a life without regret. Our natural inclinations or drives can be enhanced, modified, or even suppressed by the prevailing culture. That culture begins with the habits of our family, extends as a child to our neighborhood and educational system, and later, as an adult, to social class, workplace culture, ethnic identity, and the dominant national culture. All have an impact upon the expression or suppression of our underlying psychological potentials. Regardless of societal hindrances, there are personal habits or traits that impede archetypal expression and prevent us from leading a fulfilling life. Lack of self-esteem, or a sense of worthlessness, undermines every archetypal drive that depends on social interaction. There is no living a full or joyful life. Iffy or wavering self-esteem leads to excessive caution in pursuing our goals. Much of our potential will likely remain stifled. Deceptive self-esteem occurs when a person, for social purposes, plays at being self-confident and successful in a bid to mask feelings of inferiority. Habitual jokers, tricksters, and narcissists try to deceive others and themselves in this way. Excessive self-esteem leads a person to underestimate the capabilities and knowledge of others. It is damaging to an organization when embodied by its leader. On the feeling-oriented side, excessive self-esteem can lead to magical thinking, a belief in one's own mystical powers. Inhibition is a primary consequence of fear, leading to obfuscation of the archetypal drives that would otherwise promote personal growth. Distortion is a secondary result, being the misappropriation of archetypal drives. In a South type, this may lead to unwarranted aggression. In a North type, to paranoia, social repression, and attempts to destroy perceived enemies. In a Yellow, works of anarchy, violence, and other negative or destructive material may result. While serious illness will obviously impede archetypal drives, sloth is the more insidious impediment. Habitual laziness and chronic avoidance of stressful situations will cause a person to discredit the goals and achievements of others. In place of personal accomplishment, a fantasy world will be constructed in which archetypal drives will manifest as daydreams or be realized through computer game simulations. Corruption of the life-enhancing goals of the archetypal drives can arise in several ways and is often connected to the impediments just described. There is the promise of extreme rewards where the archetypal drive is magnified by the ego's desire for massive social achievement and exaltation. There is corruption through the adoption and promulgation of foolish or wrong-headed ideas. Much advertising is symptomatic of this type of corruption. Most common is corruption by addiction and easy pleasures. Being more physically and less mentally inclined than the other idea-based types, a South type is particularly vulnerable to addiction, as is, among the feeling types, a Red. The major religions have been stepping stones to civilization, but they have run their course. They are exhausted. In the West, at best, they promote community. At worst, they promote childish ideas of God as a benevolent father to be worshipped, as the sun and moon were worshipped in days of yore. These religions rely on ancient texts founded on social conditions far different from those that exist today. Their continuance owes to cultural conservatism and the abject failure of modern philosophy to supplant them.
There are better ideas about life's purpose than those presented by the major religions, and I don't mean science-based ideas because science is empirical. Scientific assumptions are based in physical reality, not psychological or mental reality, which is all we truly experience. There are two paths to a higher state of mental being or enlightenment or godliness or whatever you care to call it. One is the ideal-oriented or masculine route, and the second is the feeling-oriented or feminine routes. Both routes end up in the same place, a higher mental state where ideas and feelings work together to create a richer life. Here's George.
The idea-oriented or masculine mind must first develop and attain competence in the mental traits represented by the North, South, East, and West archetypes. This means the abilities to think clearly, acquire knowledge, obtain and express ideas through interactions with other people, make informed decisions, and act upon those decisions. Superior talent in any of these areas is unnecessary and may be a hindrance. To integrate these abilities requires the middle archetype. Here, the mind becomes self-consciously aware of these traits and learns how and when to switch between these different modes of behavior. Self-belief is essential, as is self-honesty and self-reliance. Psychotherapy and spiritual training are insufficient. An idea-oriented person has feelings and acts unconsciously upon them. Their conscious decisions, however, are based upon ideas which make sense, at least to themselves. Any feelings about the decision are suppressed, but to become fully functional, an idea-oriented person must venture consciously into his or her feelings about decisions and courses of action. There are ways to do this. To fully focus on feelings, a person must first learn to suppress thoughts. This is done through meditation practice that may first be learned by instruction, then personalized as a person grows more adept. Complex emotions map into various parts of the body, creating localized stress. Becoming aware of these stresses is an important start. Learning to release them, however, is a different ability. It requires delicate self-hypnosis, that is, a wordless suggestion to the body to relax the stressed area. The hardest part is to prevent a lapse into thought or a jump into full self-awareness, for that takes the mental focus away from the stressor. The act of surrendering thought and self-awareness to gradually eliminate stresses in the body is difficult. It may lead to short periods of unconsciousness, after which the process of finding and easing stressors must continue. If properly conducted, a shift in consciousness results in a blossoming state of peace that seems to set the entire body aglow. Experience of this state is transformative. A person who attains it should adopt this state as his or her personal ground or identity. From this ground state, all the feeling-based states can be consciously entered and explored without muddying one's sense of self. An idea-oriented person will now, for example, be able to recognize and examine their blue traits. These are decisions made and actions taken through mere habit. In dealing with red traits, an idea-oriented person must examine his or her sexuality. What excites? What is taboo? How important is one's physical appearance? There are no right or wrong answers, just honest and dishonest ones. With the green archetype, we must examine our feelings about people. What are our feelings about various people we know? What is our attitude to strangers? Can we read faces and sense a person's emotional state? Do we pick up on subtle cues people broadcast through gestures, eye movements, and tone of voice? Can we put aside our ideas based upon a person's physical appearance, or occupation, or accent, to see through to the human being beneath? Green within us, and embraced, can do all these things. The yellow or creative archetype is messy. Here, an idea-oriented person must let go of his or her need for order and learn to capture and value whatever momentary image or words or feelings the feminine mind conjures up. This includes night dreams, daydreams, idle doodles, fantasies, and irrational desires. They are all to be explored. The most intriguing of them need to be honored by recording in words, a sketch, or painting, or by acting upon them. By, say, preparing an original meal, or taking an unplanned walk or drive just for the experience. Spontaneity is key to getting at the fruits of yellow. Once mastery over ideas and feelings is acquired, the 8 basic archetypes cannot exhibit at will. Even a fully functional person may need to gear up to situations that require certain traits to manifest. For instance, the deep thinking of West can be an impediment to actions requiring physical dexterity. Or the open-mindedness of East can be a hindrance when firm decisions must be made. The South impetus to finish a job must be switched off when a problem is encountered and a better approach needed, and so forth. The middle archetype needs ultimately to be in control and must learn when to yield to the white archetype. A best course of action both thinks right and feels right.
I identify as a middleman, even though, as the foundational dream I described in the first video indicated that I had all 8 archetypal traits in me. But I'm naturally idea-oriented and had to learn to investigate and value my feelings and emotions. Thus, I took the masculine path just described. The feminine road requires a feeling-oriented person to develop and respect their innate masculine or idea-oriented nature. As I have no personal experience of this road, the following description has been intuited and reasoned.
For the feeling-oriented or feminine mind, the road to full function requires the development and use of rational or logical thinking. This means learning to suppress the urge to lapse into and be overcome by feelings, be they frustration, annoyance, doubt, confusion, or whatever. Firstly, though, a feeling-oriented person must recognize the feminine archetypes at work within them, namely blue decision-making, red sexuality, yellow creativity, and green empathy. An identity with white, the self-reflective archetype, is necessary too, for only white can reflect on her full range of felt experiences. Public education provides an entry point to the world of idea-based mental functioning. A standout is the rigorous discipline of mathematics, followed by the basic sciences. Logical thinking can be extended through spatial reasoning, map reading, say, or chess playing, formal debates, and solving puzzles. The challenge here is to overcome a sense of, "I can't do this," and strive for focus. Persistence is necessary. The support and encouragement of friends and family and teachers too is helpful and may at first be essential. Beyond the education system, feeling-oriented types, particularly women, stand to gain by being thrust into male-dominated businesses where they must learn to work as equals with idea-competent males. A competent woman is likely to have to deal with a tide of emotions that her male colleagues don't seem to experience. This is because the male mind excels at thought and is narrowly focused on the job at hand. Interpersonal relationships and extraneous obligations are secondary. This is not so for the capable feeling-oriented woman working in the male domain. She is not inclined to let go of relationships either with her work colleagues or with people outside her work life. The typical masculine work culture will pressure her to do this, but if she does, she will be guilty of trying to act male and will either become overstressed and thus lower functioning, or she will lose the benefit of her feminine instincts. She will find dealing with occasional male coarseness, abruptness, and idea fixation difficult. These masculine traits are not to be aped or respected, just accepted. Still, there are cultures and business environments that may appear feeling-oriented, when, in fact, they are fully masculine. Such cultures are reserved, strictly hierarchical, and dominated by unspoken rules about how business interactions should be conducted. Oriental business groups tend to be this way, and tend to disregard women as equals, no matter their capability. When it comes to integrating idea and feeling-based orientations, the world's cultures have a long way to go. All-female organizations may be a useful stepping stone, but they are no solution. Feminine cultures tend to be over-concerned with personal relationships. Productivity suffers as a result.
I'd like to interject here, George. I've remembered an incident from the 1980s which sheds light on how a feeling-oriented person can access their idea-oriented or thinking side. I lived in Atlanta, Georgia, and my girlfriend of the time told me how she gave herself advice about a problem she was facing. She wanted to be completely honest with herself, so she stripped naked and got into bed. There she imagined what I would say to her regarding her problem. Years later, I still find it remarkable that this young woman, she was just 19 at the time, had the mental wherewithal to decide how she would go about seeking her best advice. It was flattering she pictured me, but it could have been any male whose advice she would respect. In terms of the archetypes, here was the white archetype accessing her West archetype to get at her best information. As she's no longer with us, here's a photo of her.
The integrated mind can build self-knowledge and reach deeper levels of understanding, of people and of conscious reality. The integrated mind can learn to differentiate between bodily feelings, habitual feelings, and useless emotions, and distinguish them from higher feelings and intuitions that offer insight and feed new ideas. Such ability comes from the interplay of the white and middle reflective archetypes. Once mastered, adepts can evaluate the worth of their feelings and sense the worth of their ideas. This is the hallmark of a superior mind.
The first novel in the psychodrama, Mining the Psyche, explores the 8 basic psychological archetypes and their differing natures. The second novel, Seeking Ascension, deals with the problems of integrating them. Its focus is on the travails of the protagonist, Michael Ullman, and his female counterpart, Miriam Charo. Their journeys to self-understanding are revealed through the metaphors of an underground railway, in Michael's case, and for Miriam, an underground chamber. These represent 2 ways of reaching the deeper self, from the masculine direction, in the case of the underground railway, and in the feminine direction, in the case of the chamber. Michael Ullman manages to integrate the 2, and while in a state of reverie, experiences a series of revelations. Anything you'd like to add, George?
I'm an AI-generated avatar incapable of thought, remember? How about you, Michael and Miriam? Any final words? How do we save our planet?
We need ideas, better ideas.
We need togetherness, more togetherness.
Well stated, we need both.